I can still remember the feeling of nervousness and excitement when I saw my Northeastern admission decision email in my inbox. I logged into my account to see some wonderful but unexpected news. I had been accepted to Northeastern, but under the condition that I study abroad my first semester. Up until the summer before my senior year of high school, I hadn't been much of a traveler. I always got carsick and hated flying. But that summer, I went to Colombia for 5 weeks on my own, staying with friends, then went to Hawaii in February with school, and was planning a trip around Europe next summer with the New Jersey Youth Symphony. My acceptance into the NUin program seemed to come at a perfect time, and I was eager to add another place to my quickly growing list of travels. After looking through the options of the countries I could go to, I chose Australia, and just a month after graduation, I was on a plane to Melbourne. I wasn't sure what to expect with my American preconceptions of Australia, with cool accents and poisonous insects, but I was pleasantly surprised when we drove into Melbourne and I saw the beautiful city I was going to spend the next 4 months in. Upon our arrival to Swinburne, I met my roommates and got my first look at the apartment I would be living in. I was never big on cooking, but I managed to make a few good meals. And when I wasn't eating at home, I had tons of great restaurants to choose from, with many right outside my door. Not long after we arrived, we went on our first excursion to Fieldsville Sanctuary, where I saw a lot of Australian wildlife, including a koala with a joey in her pouch. Next, we went to Phillip Island, where I got my first glimpse of Australia's amazing beaches. We walked on the cliffs along the beach to see gorgeous views, and went to see the famous Phillip Island penguins. Our next excursion was a drive along the Great Ocean Road to see the 12 Apostles and Loch Ard Gorge, some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Our last excursion was a weekend trip to Sydney. We got vouchers that let us do 2 activities for free, so I took a tour of the famous Sydney Opera House and biked to the North Head Lookout. The Opera House was beautiful, and I learned all about how it was made, from how the design was chosen to how they used innovative technology to build it. The next day, I biked to North Head to see an amazing view of the entire city and towering cliffs. We all wished we had more time to explore Sydney, but the weekend was a ton of fun. After the first half of the semester, we had a week off for spring break. Since it was pretty chilly in Melbourne, my friends and I decided to go north to Cairns. The day after arriving at our hostel, we were on our first excursion, whitewater rafting on the Tully River. Although at one point everybody except me and 2 other people flew out of the raft, it was a super fun experience. The next day we were off to Yungaburra to see lakes, head through the rainforest, and see some waterfalls, one of which had been featured in a few commercials. The third day we were off to the Great Barrier Reef. After sleeping through the 2-hour ride out to the reef, I awoke to the most gorgeous blue water and dove right in to start snorkeling in the world's largest coral reef. I even got to go in a semi-submarine to see different areas of the reef. The 4th day, we went to see crocodiles on the Daintree River cruise, where I learned all about the hundreds of crocs and sharks that were living in the waters. We then went to the Rainforest Habitat Sanctuary, where we got up close and personal with kangaroos, and I was able to fulfill my dream of holding a koala. Our last day was spent at Palm Cove Beach, where we relaxed and soaked up some sun before heading home. After arriving back in Melbourne, it was time for my service learning assignment, volunteering at the Royal Melbourne Show. At the show, I worked in the animal area, where aside from guarding gates and squirting hand sanitizer, I handled and bottle-fed lambs and kids, baby goats, not humans. I also did service learning with the entire NUin group at the Parkinson's Victoria Walk and the Melbourne Cup. At the Parkinson's Walk, after directing walkers where to go, I got to stand at the finish line and place medals around the necks of everyone who completed the walk. Besides all the NUin activities, I got involved with the Melbourne Jewish life and mixed martial arts culture. I spent holidays and a few weekends with families that I had met through a rabbi at home. One of my favorite experiences was sitting at a table filled with 30 people from all sects of Judaism as we celebrated the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. It was difficult being away from home during the holidays that I usually spent with my whole extended family, but the families I stayed with made me feel right at home. Another place that began to feel like home for me was absolute mixed martial arts. I trained in boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at home and loved it, so I knew I would continue in Melbourne. After taking trial classes at a few gyms, I finally chose Absolute, and I'm so glad I did. I took 5 to 8 classes a week in boxing, jiu-jitsu, and MMA. I trained under world-ranked and professional fighters who helped bring my skill to a whole new level. I even went to my first competition and won a fight. The NUin program has been one of the greatest experiences in my life. It helped me grow as a person, student, and global citizen. I made friendships with Americans and Australians that I hope to keep for years to come. Although I am excited to return home, I know I'll miss Melbourne and hope to one day return to the city where my college experience first began.